Good morning, hello and welcome. My name is Bhuvan and this is the editorial edge for the 20th of September 2023. Okay, on the agenda we have three topics and one that will find resonance say not just in prelims but also in the mains. Okay, it's a new term. It's a concept that should be introduced to many of you. Okay, it's about biohacking. So we'll understand what biohacking is first. Thereafter, number two, we'll take a look at the regulation of OTTs, over the top services that we all almost, it's a part of our daily lives. Okay. Now, in terms of OTTs, there are two aspects that you need to look at. One is the carriage of the service, right? Say voice over internet protocol, data calls, whatever that you make. So that's happening over internet. Okay. So internet is the one bit, the carriage of that particular content, and then the content. Say what you watch on Netflix or say Amazon or Disney Hotstar or whatever. Okay. So there are two angles to it and two different bodies that take care of each of them. Okay. And so what is the regulation aspect? We will take a look at the telecom carriage bit, the one that is used by the content generators to go ahead and provide content to the consumer. Okay. So why is it that the government is looking to regulate it? We'll seek to understand that, number two. And then number three is the trail guard AI camera. Now this has been used in Madhya Pradesh. Okay. And so what is different, say, from a usual camera trap? Normally you must have heard of, say, census being conducted or, say, a presence or absence of a particular species in a forest that is confirmed via using camera traps. Now, these were the old cameras. Okay. What they would do was, say, essentially, if an animal passed in front of it, it would just blink and take a photo of it. Okay. So now we have say, evolved from there, and now we are looking at using trail guard AI cameras. So what is it that's different about them? Okay. What are the ethical concerns? More or less, you will figure out that if you are using AI in forests, there's a lot of issues. Okay. So we'll seek to understand that, right? Okay. Your neighbor, coder, Socrates, Panjul, Jerin, good morning guys. Thank you for joining. Meanwhile, if you're joining me for the first time, and for those of you who are my regular watchers, thank you firstly for joining. May I just quickly request you to go ahead and like the stream for me and share the stream. We could do with a lot more people watching this, kind of content that we push out. I think it will be of benefit to the student community, right? Okay, let's get started. So this is where you connect with me on Instagram, by the way. Okay. And if you have any particular questions, long form questions that you would like to send to me, well, this is my email ID, bhuvan.jha@studyiq.com. And you will find the PDF of this particular lecture uploaded on my Telegram channel. Now, I'm also led to believe that WhatsApp has also started this whole channel fad. So you, the student community, will let me know. Okay. If you want me on WhatsApp, fine, we'll get there. Or if this community, this small group where we share documents and information and articles, if that is of benefit to you, then we'll continue here. Okay. It's completely the call of the students. Okay. Right. Let's get started. First topic for the day, biohacking. First, let's understand what biohacking is. Okay. So it refers to modifying and enhancing human biological systems to elongate or improve the human experience. This is the key term. Okay. Now, what is the human experience? So for example, if you go ahead and understand the biohackers' mindset, they are looking to become, say, like, the expert, the Magnus at everything that they do. They are looking at harnessing the, say, basic components of life in the most efficient manner, right? So let's understand. We'll understand. It's a very new concept. So it will be of immense benefit to the students. And I expect this to be asked someday, somewhere in some examination. Okay. So the most common type that you must be aware of, the CRISPR mechanism, for example, okay, where you go ahead and say, change a particular sequence of DNA or a strand of DNA and then figure out how a particular mutation or a problem is to be solved. Okay. So genetic engineering can be understood to be as a part of biohacking. However, let's now go back to the individual. Let's understand the problem as it is. Now, many of you might be, say, going ahead, or even if you don't, you must have heard of people who are, say, taking part in intermittent fasting, right? So they will have, say, one meal a day or some sort of variation of that will be there. What is that essentially? That's biohacking, the most rudimentary form of biohacking, that you are looking to go ahead and harness, say, the nutrients, supplements, and sync it to the requirements of your body. Okay. So what does that tell you? That, say, biohacking is user specific. So for example, you might like to sleep for, say, 8 hours a day. Okay. I'm comfortable sleeping 3 hours a day or 4 hours a day. So now what am I doing? am I biohacking? Yes or no? You will let me know. Okay. Or if you are wearing, say, wearable technologies, all these smart watches that you wear, it gives you your SpO2 level, heartbeat level, all the different parameters of the body. And based on that, you are taking your decisions. Okay, probably my body is lacking such and such thing, so I should have such and such food. Are you biohacking? Okay, that's possibility. That's one of the connotations of biohacking, guys. Okay, so let's understand. It's a very new and novel concept. For example, once again, consumption of nootropics. Very quite infamous in the student community also, So I don't want to go ahead and say name the kind of examinations, but you do have, say, students in India who would readily consume nootropics so as to maximize their performance in examinations, in competitive examinations. Okay. Now, obviously, that has health challenges. Unadministered drugs, or say unverified drugs being administered, self-administered. It's never good news. Okay. So what are these? These are biohacking. So you're looking at harnessing your cognitive abilities to get that extra edge in the examination. Okay. So you're biohacking essentially. So use of nootropics, chemical drugs that claim to enhance memory, focus, creativity, all things that you require to go ahead and say clear an examination, any pan-India examination, right? Biohacking can also include body modification. Now this is new. What you're looking at is this concept as biohacking, okay? It came into prominence in the year 1998, by the way. And which country? Well, it's not a big guess. It came up in United States of America. And you had this group of individuals who thought that, well, you have technology, you have our own body, biology. How can you marry the two? And for what purpose? For getting a better human experience. So the first rudimentary form, again, the primary form of biohacking was that one individual went ahead and inserted an RFID chip or a tag under his skin, which allowed him essentially to just snap and then quickly switch on the lights and all of that. Switch off, switch on the lights, doing this. He was essentially using RFID to go ahead and do what we would have taken, say, walk to the switchboard and switch on and off. That was the first form of biohacking that came up in United States. Now, the problem in United States is basically the same problem that follows across the world. Okay. So you have these do-it-yourself hackers that they are called. Okay. This phenomenon that came up as a result of this is known as the grinder phenomenon, or the grinder movement essentially, that came up in the United States, where you had this group of individuals, all aspiring biohackers, okay, all thought of, say, marrying human body and technology to become, well, if you want to understand in a rudimentary form, Optimus Prime. Okay, they wanted to become Optimus Prime. So now they had this grinder fest, all of these fests where they would come, discuss ideas, come up with, say, all types of mechanisms, RFID tags, chips. Okay. Now, what the problem associated with that? You can straight away understand as civil service aspirants. That you have firstly done all of these minor surgical procedures, or even say major surgical procedures being done in your own house. Okay. No medical supervision firstly. How much of it is being followed in conformity with, say, what is done in a hospital or in an infirmary? Not known. Okay. So you can understand, discuss the challenges straight away. So first, body modification. Some biohackers enhance their physical appearance or capabilities by implanting electronic devices, magnets also, okay, and RFID. Yes, your neighbor, I'm telling you, this is true. This is true. When I was reading about it last evening, and so there are many anecdotes that I can share with you regarding biohackers. Say mechanisms that have gone wrong, okay, and mechanisms that have made individuals better. Okay, many of the examples exist, but from the examination perspective now, you are supposed to know the difference between these two factors, okay, body hacking and biohacking. Okay, so what is body hacking? What you are essentially doing, you wear a technology, a wearable watch, or you go ahead and say have blow markers. You use supplements, right? You have optimized sleep cycles. Some people sleep for, say, 4 hours, then after that work for, say, 8 hours, then another sleep for 2 hours. Not everyone sleeps 8 hours a day. What are they doing? They are body hacking. Okay. So from the examination perspective, what I suggest is, know the primary difference between body hacking and biohacking, which I have mentioned in my slide here. Okay. So meditation, augmented reality, personal mobility devices, prosthetics, right? For the Divyangs, in fact, if you have prosthetics, they are not biohacking. You are enabling them to function at a level as, say, what is expected or what is normal. So that is what? Body hacking. You are giving them prosthetics to be much more efficient. The quality of life should increase, right? Now, biohacking is not essentially always about quality of life. Okay, we'll understand that. Let's look at it. So look at these examples now. Okay, you see wearable watches, they've got all of these things inserted in their ears. Okay, look at this. Someone has got this inserted right between their palm, an RFID tag. So what is it? Biohacking enhancements can enable users to interact with technology more seamlessly. It's essentially the marriage of biology or human body plus technology. You see? And thus, this whole phenomenon, the era of cyborgs. If you have seen that Arnold movie, no? Yes? So he's again fighting cyborgs there. So that essentially must have been probably the inspiration for all of this. Okay? So now biohacking itself has ethical concerns. Like I told you, number one, self-administration. Because of lack of regulation in biohacking, most of it is done on a do-it-yourself method, you know, on a do-it-yourself basis. So a group of say 20, 30 biohackers come up with crazy ideas, groundbreaking ideas, novel ideas, innovative ideas, one must say, and then they implement it on themselves. Okay. So self-administration, usage of unregulated drugs, and then come to the social aspect of it. Yes, there are benefits also of biohacking. Okay. It does enable in certain situations a human being to function at say a heightened level of efficiency. Now, since it started in the USA, you can understand that it will take at least what, 150, 200 years before it reaches Africa. For sure. Okay. So this is what? This is again, equality of access may be limited in the coming days. Why again? Because this is a novel industry, which is why this is also one of the primary social concerns regarding biohacking. That see the good parts of biohacking may not be say evenly distributed across the globe. Okay. That the growth centers of biohacking right now are primarily in the West. Okay. So let's look at it. Inequality to access enhanced by social and economic backgrounds. Right. Now the potential use of interventions, the absence of genuinely informed consent. What is informed consent? When you go to say a hospital, okay, you have to be administered a drug or an injection or whatever, a medicine. Normally you will have the doctor or the nurse explain to you what she or he is administering to you, right? That you will know say the side effects. You will be given a basic idea. Obviously the informed consent is deemed to be taken once you go ahead and take out the pill from the packet and then pop it. Okay. But in case if it's being done in an institution, you will be informed of all the side effects, the pros, the cons. But is that available to the biohackers? Okay. For example, here I am, an aspiring biohacker. You are a group of say 20 biohackers who have been in this field for a considerable amount of time, right? I go ahead asking you to go ahead and implant a chip in my palm. Now I may not know that I am susceptible to say tetanus, not necessary. Okay. So what does that happen? I do not have the complete information regarding the pros, the cons of whatever procedure I am going to take, right? Another concern that arises out of it. Okay. Let me know in your chat if there are any other topics. Yes, Neuralink is one. In fact, now that your neighbor has mentioned this, okay, let's note down a couple of them. Okay, let's see. Before we discuss Bermuda principles, let's see some other examples of biohacking. Let me quickly go ahead and note them down for you. Okay. So like one I can think of is nutrigenomics. Now what is nutrigenomics, guys? Can someone let me know what is nutrigenomics? Yes. Say for example, the example I told you, you choose your food, your supplements based on your body needs, based on your genetic makeup. Some people might need more of iron, some people might need more of magnesium. Okay. Thyroid patients need more of iron. Okay. So what is that? You are choosing food required for your particular body type, your requirement of the body. That science is nutrigenomics, right? Think of some other. There's one more that I am thinking of, which may sound a little crazy, but it is happening, which is transcranial, it's called TSCD, transcranial direct current stimulation. Okay, transcranial direct current stimulation. So the name gives it away. What are you hoping to do here? You are going to go ahead and use say small currents, not high currents, obviously not high voltage, small amperes, some small voltage currents to go ahead and stimulate certain parts of your brain. That is transcranial direct current stimulation. Okay, nootropics, again another example of biohacking. okay, what same students community feel tempted to take, but they ideally shouldn't. Okay, it has its own set of problems that come with it. Okay, what else are you thinking? Wearable technology, all of the smart watches that you wear. Okay, wearable tech. You are also looking at, say, going ahead and harnessing the capability of genetic testing, gene alteration. All of these are essentially what? You are hoping to become a superhuman. Do you understand that? Optimus Prime. Okay, that is the whole point. You're hoping to become a superhuman, for which you are hoping to leverage the power of technology in making you a superhuman. That is essentially biohacking. Okay, now so yes, so it is often said, and you must have heard of it, that before you go to sleep, you should limit your exposure to blue light. Okay, why is that? Because, well, blue light does have, say, that effect on your brain, on your body, that it inhibits sleep, right? So again, if you use a biohacking method wherein you're limiting your access to, say, blue light, or just simply not using a mobile tab, which most people would do, that would be considered to be a form of biohacking. Are you able to get it? Electroconvulsive therapy, you see, Kalyan, ECT, what you're talking about, is essentially a medical procedure. Now, well, the basic issue with biohacking is that it is a non-medical procedure. It is not institutionalized per se. You know, like I told you, most of it is to do with do-it-yourself method. We are a gang of 50 people and we are doing it amongst ourselves. More like a cult that likes to experiment. Understand it that way. Okay. And this cult began where? Obviously, the place is the mother of all cults, United States of America. Okay. Right. Let's understand. Go ahead. Bermuda Principles. Now, this came up in 1996, guys. Now, the whole problem was, if you have ever read about the Human Genome Project, okay, the HGP, the Human Genome Project, okay, which goes and wants to go ahead and say sequence, eventually has managed to sequence the whole genetic makeup of humans. This was done in 2020. But that journey was a long one. Now, initially, it was, say, just the, say, sole ambit of researchers. They went ahead, did the sequencing, came up with their research, and that was withheld from the public up until, say, it was published in a peer-reviewed journal, which is the normal way. Are you guys aware of this? Okay. So this was the normal way. You did your research, withheld the information up until you got published in a peer-reviewed journal. Now, the Bermuda Principles changed all of that. It said that when you are talking about, say, genetic sequencing, whatever information that comes out of your research, if it is not published within 24 hours and made to the public, well, there's something wrong. You have to go ahead, in the interest of transparency, make all information available to the public, accessible to the public within 24 hours. Okay, that was the Bermuda Principles, adopted in 1996. Germany, Japan, UK, France, and the United States. They met in Bermuda. And the International Human Genome Sequencing Consortium, you also had China join it in 1999. China is not one of the founding members of the Bermuda Principles, by the way. Much later, 3 years later. Okay. Now, currently the Global Alliance for Genomic Health has over 70 countries, and they all look to implement the Bermuda Principles. You know, this whole thing that your research, whatever you are doing in the pursuit of genetic sequencing, has to be made available to the public. Now, obviously, in the interest of transparency, this was the right thing to do. But then this has also been used by the biohackers to go ahead and, say, empower themselves more. Okay. So the problem of regulation in biohacking is a major concern, guys. We'll understand that. Okay. Let's look at it. As biohacking depends on biological data, information sharing, upholding clinical research standards, it becomes imperative for countries to align themselves together. There should be a global benchmark now. Don't you understand? Don't you agree with me here? Yes. That this is something that is looking at convergence of two different areas: health of an individual, technology, which means you need to have global best standards that come out of it, because once again, the genetic sequencing, the whole research around it is being done globally. Information is coming out on a 24-hourly basis globally, right? So you need to have a regulatory framework. So let's understand the regulatory framework now. Okay. So in terms of India, what you're looking at is no state regulation directly governs biohacking and biohackers. No regulation whatsoever. In India, in fact, you have around 50 do-it-yourself biohackers. Okay. So obviously, it's not a say a segment that has caught up much We are still nascent in terms of biohacking, but understand, we have a population pool of 140 crore people, which means this emerging new idea, this emerging new technology, if one may consider it to be so, has to be quickly, say, regulated, because again, it's a sample set of 140 crore people that you're looking at. Okay, and if one thing goes wrong, then it can be a catastrophe. Correct? So, the presence of different bodies, one of the primary criticisms now, guys. So, you have the Central Drug Standards Control Organization and the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Two different organizations, two different ministries, and they have, say, overlapping jurisdictions on this. Now, the problem in India more often than not is because of overlapping jurisdictions between bodies. Once again, why? Because it's to do with, say, digital and, say, health. You are going to have multiple ministries involved here, which means again multiple bodies will be involved here. So who will regulate? Jurisdiction kiska hai? Eventually it comes down to jurisdiction only. Okay. The scope of unethical and unsafe use and marketing. Now, why is that? This will be further exacerbated. Why? Because we are looking at, say, our traditional medicine market or segment in India is quite huge. Not everyone is, say, able to or wanting to go to a primary health center or a dispensary. They would rather go to probably a Ved or someone from the traditional medicine sector. You know, the belief of the people on that system is quite high, and with good reason. It's sustainable, yes, but it also have you seen of instances where, say, a particular traditional medicinal practitioner went ahead and gave you some sort of intrusive surgery? Yes, you must have heard of those cases going wrong, correct? That they asked you that, okay, you should have this particular thing inserted here and taken out from here and it will solve your problem. Do you understand that? So biohacking can become a problem if in India it finds consonance with the traditional medicine method, right? So the lack of regulation in this space risks adverse effects from homemade gene therapies, environmental contamination, all of this. You're looking at, say, the traditional medicine that may be misused by biohackers in their pursuit for this human excellence, if I may. Good morning, Alekha, how are you? Welcome guys. Let me know if you're able to understand what biohacking is all about, okay? So the question in UPSC could be as straightforward as what is biohacking and, say, 4 very close options. Or it can talk you about, say, 4 or 5 particular ideas and ask you to identify which of the above are biohacking, okay? And that's going to be my agenda too. So these are my questions for you guys. What you're going to do is leave the answers for me of these questions in the comment box like you have been doing over the past few days and weeks. Okay, you have been most generous with your participation. Yesterday, we had an increased number of students who took part in this daily morning session. And I hope that momentum continues, you know. Eventually, it is about understanding topics and solving questions. That's the only thing that's required to clear prelims. Okay. Identify the correctly matched. Central Drug Standard Control Organization, which is the parent ministry. Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, which is the parent ministry. Genetic Engineering Approvals Committee. Is it under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change? Which of the above are correctly matched? You will let me know in the comment box. Right? Let's move on to the next question. Which of the above may be classified under biohacking or as biohacking? Same thing. Okay. So first one, transcranial direct current stimulation. I think so. We spoke about it just now. Nootropics, nutrigenomics, and intermittent fasting. Which of these may be categorized as biohacking? You will let me know. Right. That completes the first topic of the day. Before I go forward, once again, I have been plugging this on a daily basis. Why? Because I want students to grasp what's the idea behind answer writing. You know, most of the students don't have a clue about how to write a good mains answer. You know, it's not as simple as ki intro, mains, body, conclusion. वो तो आप school में भी करते थे. You know, this is the UPSC. It requires a different sort of temperament. It requires a different sort of skill set. And I have tried to discuss that skill set based on my limited experience in these 2 videos. After the GS mains paper 1 was over. Go ahead, take a look at it. You know, more important than the model answer is the approach that a student has to develop if they are to write a good answer. And I have tried to discuss that approach in these 2 videos. Have a look at it. You will find it under the live tab on StudyIQ English YouTube channel. Okay? Right. Regulation of OTTs, over the top services. All of us are using it. Okay, let's be honest. Now, there are 2 angles to this, guys. When you discuss OTTs, there are 2 angles to this. One is obviously the carriage of the service. Okay. So, you are watching your India versus whatever team match in the forthcoming Asia in what World Cup. Now that is what? That is the content that is being provided to you. That cricket match is the content which you are consuming over say a particular broadband service, right? So your carriage of the service is that particular telecom service provider, say Airtel, Jio, Vodafone, BSNL, if anyone is using, all of that. Those are your agencies responsible for carriage of service. On the other hand, you have the content, say the cricket match. Okay. Now you have two different bodies once again, guys. Like I told you, in India we have no dearth of bodies. Okay. So the carriage of service, that particular Vodafone, AI, Airtel, whatever it is, that is being managed by TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI. Okay. This is done by TRAI. Whereas the content is looked after by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, Government of India. Correct? Let's get this clear first. What are the two bodies that are responsible for OTTs in India? Now, the problem is with regards to the regulation of the carriage of the service. Okay? You look at the notes and at your own time. Understand the concept. Now, the problem, the primary grievance of these telecom service providers. For example, if you are, say, the telecom service provider A, ABC, company ABC. Okay? And I am, say, company XYZ. I go ahead and create content. I make movies which get streamed on Netflix, for example. You are the Airtel person, ABC person. Now, you are going to say, hang on, besides, say, internet, I also used to provide telephones. I also used to provide mobile connections. Now, because of, say, these Netflix and Amazon and all of that, my direct-to-home service has gone. No one watches cable TV anymore, firstly. Everyone is logged onto the internet to watch their TVs, their movies, their content. So they are saying, you are using my broadband and you are killing my market. Then I as a Netflix guy will say, hang on, what do you want me to do? Okay, my audience likes my content better. Then you go ahead and tell me, how are you going to give me revenue? You will say, anyways, the audience is paying for the broadband, that's your revenue. Okay, then they say, but I am providing you internet. Where is your contribution to my revenue? After all, I am generating so much of infrastructure so that your Netflix content reaches the audience. This is where the tussle is, guys. पैसे का tussle है essentially. किसको कितना भाग मिलना चाहिए? Okay. So now let's understand the regulation of OTTs and what TRAI is planning to solve this divergence between these two parties. Okay. Number one. First, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India looking to regulate OTT communication services, WhatsApp, Signal, Meta, Google Meet, Zoom, Netflix, all of these. Okay. They are all part of this whole cohort. Now, the content bit OTT, like I told you, the content is regulated by the Ministry of Information Broadcasting. Now, the conflict, the area, the problem, it revolves around whether OTT communication services, you make a WhatsApp call, which means you're not making a call from your Airtel connection, which means revenue is being lost by Airtel. Okay. WhatsApp gains obviously revenue plus advertisement. So the Airtel fellows are angry. Okay. So OTT communication services should be regulated and charged for using the telecom infrastructure. See, they are justifying it using, you know what, I'm having to build towers, I'm having to lay optic fibers so that this whole high-speed internet reaches, on which people are making free calls. The problem is that people are getting convenienced, which the telecom service providers don't like. Okay. So built by traditional, all the companies, whatever companies that you can think of. Okay. Now, what are these companies claiming? That OTT communication service providers do not contribute to the government's revenue and do not invest in network infrastructure. Okay. This is their primary criticism, that revenue generation they are adding zero, and I am laying all the optic fiber cables and all the infrastructure that is needed, and yet these guys don't give a single paisa to it. Okay. They assert that the OTT services benefit from the existing infrastructure without making any particular contribution. What do the OTT fellows say then? The Internet and Mobile Association says that, well, firstly, it is against the idea of cost sharing because, well, it is to do with rupees, arguing that it lead to double charging of the same service. What is double charging? That anyways, say people are paying for the internet that they use, people are paying for the amount of GB that they foresee that they will consume. I am creating my system within that particular system. How is anyone losing out? That's what they are saying. Okay. At the same time, the concept of net neutrality, and we'll understand what net neutrality is very quickly. They're also saying net neutrality could be compromised. So how? Okay, look at it. Firstly, consumers already pay Airtel, Vodafone for data consumption. Secondly, they would say it would raise the cost of internet usage and violate the principles of neutrality. What is net neutrality? That all telecom service providers would treat all form of internet traffic in a similar platform. That there will be no discrimination in terms of internet traffic. Whether a person chooses to call people on his WhatsApp or only message or play only PUBG, that is his or her complete responsibility. My job is to just provide internet. I will not limit access for the person to say watch high quality content and give them speed here. Nahi. Uniform hona chahiye. Right? Oh, your neighbor, you are absolutely correct. But that is a different story. Okay. So the pros of regulation now. So what happens if you go ahead and regulate it, especially the carriage bit? Okay. Not the content, guys. Just the carriage of the services. So consumer protection. Okay. You are looking at protecting consumers' interest plus establishing standards for data privacy. More importantly, security and users' rights. Okay. In line with the global best standards, the benchmark that could be followed, that would be taken care of if TRAI is allowed to go ahead and regulate this whole sector. Okay. You're looking at fair competition, establishing a level playing field between telecom operators and OTT providers. Right now, it is slightly skewed, no? Yes. You often find people going ahead and making WhatsApp calls rather than, say, normal calls. The point of the whole exercise is communication, ease and convenience. But from this organizational perspective, we are looking at creating a level playing field. So if you regulate this sector, well, TRAI will go ahead and try to ensure a fair balance, essentially. Okay. And revenue generation. Because why not? Why not? After all, it is about the moolah. It is about the paisa. Okay. Licensing fees and taxes imposed on OTT services, which can contribute to public resources and infra development. But they all have to be done without breaching the concept of net neutrality. Because let's understand this. This is a global concept. This is not an India-specific concept. So all of this, you have to ensure a fine and fair balance. That the interests of the three stakeholders, guys. Who are the three stakeholders? Number one, my telecom service provider. Number two, my WhatsApp, Meta, Telegram, all of them. And number three, you and I, the consumer. Okay. All three have to be satisfied here. So which means that the telecom service provider shouldn't lose out on revenue. These fellows should not be overtaxed or overcharged. And obviously, nothing should change for us. Okay. Nothing should change for the consumer because the whole point of the exercise is that the consumer should benefit. Are you able to understand this? Just the carriage bit, the carriage aspect. The whole content regulation on, say, whether a content is obscene or parental advisory is needed or what kind of, say, messaging should be flashed, So sometimes on TVs, if someone is smoking, you have a particular disclaimer that is introduced. None of that is introduced in OTTs. On OTTs, say, the language is a lot more crude and harsh as compared to, say, the language you find on TVs. Do you need to go ahead and, say, regulate that sector? Those decisions are to be taken by the Ministry of Information Broadcasting that will look at the content aspect of it. You have the proliferation of various apps, which you might consider that they publish objectionable material. Okay. But then let's understand that is allowed. Even that objectionable material that you and I may consider is allowed under the ambit of right to expression and free speech. Because let's understand this. These are specific apps that are not mandatorily installed on your phone, that you choose to go ahead and install those apps. So if a particular, that's you're exercising your choice. So that also is another conversation that we can have some other day, okay, on how you go ahead and regulate content in these OTTs. Fine. So the challenges, balancing regulation with net neutrality, okay. You're also looking at this global benchmark. Obviously, all of these has to be on a global scale, okay. Can you go ahead and innovation? So all this digital India, guys, that we talk about, how has it been built? It has been built on the backbone of cheap internet and cheap phones, correct? These two have been reduced in cost, which is why this is becoming a reality or has become a reality. But the moment you go ahead and tax this internet bit, You go ahead and make it much more expensive. Do you think Digital India will continue the positive forward momentum that it has shown? It will become a barrier, it will become an impediment. And that is also the key worry from the government side, that it does not want this sector to be hindered, because this is the primary growth mover in terms of enabling people, exploring and building up new possibilities for them. Correct? Right. Let's look at these questions, guys. Chalo. Which of the following or above are under the ambit of the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India? Just to speak about this for a second, okay? The Telecom Regulatory Authority of India has a chairperson, okay? And if I am not mistaken, it has a full-time member and a part-time member. Part-time members, okay? Two each, okay? And they also have been set up by an Act of Parliament, by the way. Act of Parliament, set up under an Act of Parliament. And they have a telecom disputes body. A disputes body is also there that goes ahead, disputes and appellate body that goes ahead and takes care of all the disputes, and this jurisdiction is over the telecom service providers. Okay, so that's Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, a statutory body that has been made responsible for all carriage services, the telecom service providers in India. Okay, so tariffs, mobile number portability, content regulation on Netflix, DTH service. Which of the above are under the responsibility of TRAI? Don't forget, I told you today two things: the responsibility of carriage and the responsibility of content. Okay. From the OTT perspective, a student needs to be clear about these two angles. Unless and until you are clear about these two angles, you will make a mistake if a question is provided so in the mains. And if you have seen the mains paper, you will understand that questions nowadays are no more just limited to, say, history or none of that. That is there, obviously. That's an intrinsic part of your syllabus. Questions are also asking you to have an opinion. Questions on child cuddling, on suicides, on, say, mobile phone usage. Yes, all of these are new age phenomenons, which means you need to be absolutely aware of new age technology and new age phenomenons that are coming up in various sectors. Okay, very, very important. Right? Let's look at this. Statement 1, TRAI was established by an Act of Parliament to regulate telecom services and tariffs. It has full-time and part-time members, and the Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal is outside the responsibility of TRAI. You will identify the correct statements. But not a very difficult question now that I've given you the answer to this already. Okay. Before I introduce the last topic to you, my dear friends, is the chat moving? I don't see the chat moving much today. Are you guys not here, guys? Has everyone left? Okay. So meanwhile, before we start with the TrailGuard AI, this is closing, by the way. Friday evening, 6 p.m. I'm taking the orientation class in English language for this. We begin with physical geography. Okay. And so if any of you are still preparing, or at least still considering how to go ahead and prepare for next year civil services, one thing I can assure you, rote learning will get you nowhere. Okay. If you do not have the ability to develop linkages, and a term that is used frequently by faculty from across the board, and all faculty are absolutely correct, you need to develop linkages. What does linkages mean? That you need to identify that an environment problem is also an economic problem. It's a social problem. It's a historical problem. Now, if you do not know how an environment problem is a history problem, well, you need to go ahead and start from Industrial Revolution. Think about all the coal extraction. Think about the colonialism that followed. And then think about the emissions that are continuing till this date. Now, if all of these are Greek, may I suggest quickly go ahead, sign up for the Prelims to Interview program. Okay, you will be in good hands. That's all I can assure you. Okay, that you will be exposed to all sorts of questions, not just for Prelims and Mains. Most of the times, most of the places, the focus is on content. Once again, but as a student, if you do not realize that your selection is codependent on your knowledge and your ability to translate that knowledge in solving questions, then you are mistaken. Okay. And even if you are planning for yourself, here's a free tip: solve questions. Okay. Weekly basis, solve at least 100 questions. If you're not solving at least 100 questions right now, you're doing it wrong. Okay. Go ahead, sign up for this and use the code BA Live. Why? Because then, well, you get a big discount. So that's your benefit. My benefit, I get to go ahead and engage with you, make sure that your concepts are crystal clear and that you've been exposed to ample questions. Right. The last topic, TrailGuard AI camera. Up until now, you have heard of camera traps, guys. Huh? You must have heard of camera traps. All of these IFS officers on Twitter will be sharing photos from their camera traps. Okay. Now, what is the advantage of that firstly? What does it do? So, it is set up in a forest. A heron, a deer passes by. Now, you are looking for tiger census. A herd of deer passes by. Camera trap functions, clicks photos of all of them. It has limited storage. Khatam. Now, when actually a tiger comes, you have photos of deer. Will the tiger census be timely? Then you go ahead, what you do? Firstly, you go ahead, access the physical drive from the tree that you have appended the camera trap to. Come back to your headquarters, your range office. Use a MS-DOS computer to figure out which photos have been taken. Thereafter, you know, acha, okay, only Hiran ka photo aaya. Then you go ahead, empty the drive, format it, take it back again. Meanwhile, the tiger has already gone ahead. Right? This is the problem associated with camera traps. That their physical access is cumbersome. That you need to go ahead, take it out, access, delete, go ahead and insert it again. Okay? Thereby also increasing risk to the forest guard. Eventually, it will be the forest guard who will be doing this. Okay, not the DFO. Right? So, wildlife officials in Kanha Pench corridor in Madhya Pradesh, well, they came up with a new technology. In fact, they implemented a new technology. And what is it? That has incorporated artificial intelligence. Now, what artificial intelligence will a camera use? Straight away, you're solving the problem. So, if you're going for a tiger census, your camera knows that it is only to take the photo of a tiger. Okay. That's a bear or a herd of heron or whatever. No photos taken there. Okay. First things first. So, it knows which photo to take, when to take, of whom to take. Okay. So, these are slim again, smaller in size. They almost look, you know what, like a pen. This is how it looks like. And so, if you have a tree, yes, you don't need to go ahead, and a camera trap would require something like this, some sort of this attachment. It would require to be tied around a tree. This can just be appended to a tree. You understand that? It is much more slimmer, much more easier to handle. Plus, it knows which photos to take. Okay, that this whole problem of physical access, coming, going, using, building, burning all sorts of fuel, no more there. Okay, so it is equipped with embedded software, specific species of interest. So, problem of physical access taken care of. So, these limitations are taken care of. One second. You have any questions for me? What happened here? Okay, we are here. Okay. Sometimes no, it just goes to sleep. So, let's look at it now. In say environment and conservation, where else are you using AI per se? For example, if the question asks you about the usage of AI systems in environment conservation. Okay. A very fair question that say civil services may or may not ask, but you should be prepared about this regardless. So, where are AI systems being used in environment? Right. So, firstly, you must have heard of say satellite systems that are used. Satellite systems are being used for monitoring. Okay. You are monitoring wildfires, or not even AI. Just look at AI and tech both. Okay. You are monitoring wildfires. You are monitoring erosion. Okay. You are monitoring loss of habitat. All of that how? Your satellites are helping you. Correct. Where else? Think of it, guys. Now, you guys will tell me the answer. Mujhe batao. Where else are we thinking of, say, using AI or tech? For example, aren't we looking at, say, AI-driven climate models? You must be hearing of all these crazy research that comes, no? That, oh, by the year 2040, you know what, this coast of India will submerge. Or by 2050, this island will be gone. How are they coming up with such predictive analysis? AI, yes. So, you're using AI to go ahead and develop models based on the data sets that we have. You know, the whole concept of AI is say being leveraged. Why? Because you have access to data sets. That you have say the temperature and precipitation pattern of a particular area for say the last 50 years. And then you're able to measure the say variability there. Plus what is expected in terms of our emissions, our global temperature to go up in the next 50 years. Then you marry these two data sets and come up with predictions saying, acha, you know what, by say 2050, say Digha will be submerged or half of Calcutta will be submerged. All sorts of crazy predictions. Okay. How is that being done? By using AI. Correct? Can you tell me some more examples where you are using technology for say in the environment conservation? Are you looking at energy efficiency, guys? At your own homes? Don't you have all of these devices, the smart home devices that have all come in fad today? Yes, or even the usage of LED bulbs, for example. Yes, reducing your energy consumption, thereby reducing your carbon footprint. That is also use of technology in conservation. है कि नहीं? You are looking at, say, natural disasters being tracked and monitored better. Cyclone disaster response systems being developed. Nowadays, you have systems that go ahead and tell me, number 5, okay, the prospect of lightning. Now, the lightning is a very classic case. So, for example, you cannot predict where the lightning will strike. What you can predict is, say, a large area that will be more prone to lightning strikes based on the, say, cloud development that is being observed, based on the weather pattern, the local weather pattern. Okay. So all of that is what? You're using technology, you are using these sorts of new age softwares and hardware to come up with solutions to address your environment problems. Hurricane tracking systems, you must have heard of these. They will be tracking it real time using a satellite. Acha, the hurricane has moved this way on the west coast or the east coast or wherever. That is also what? You using technology for environment conservation, for learning more about the environment, for developing models that you can go ahead and, say, predict, inform the public, take care, seek refuge, go into your shelters. Yesterday, just a couple of days ago, didn't we have a message come on our mobile phones from the National Disaster Management Authority, was it? What was the point of that? You are developing technology, that infrastructure, the capability is being created so as to quickly go ahead and address people's challenges vis-a-vis any. It could be a natural disaster, it could be a threat from a foreign military power, whichever way it is. Is that not integration of technology in our lives? How many of us would have thought of this, say, 10 years earlier or 20 years earlier? Now it is becoming a reality. Yes? So all of this is what? Integration of technology that you are looking at, guys. Right? Okay, you'll find this entire PDF on my Telegram channel, right, at noon. Meanwhile, if you have any questions regarding the 3 topics that we discussed today, this is where you find them. Okay. Let's look at the questions from yesterday, guys. We discussed in detail Shanti Niketan. We also looked at Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore's model of education and his views on nationalism. How was his personal life, his upbringing? How did that guide Rabindranath Tagore's, say, whole opinion on education? You must have seen that. Here was a student who was not really interested in the classroom. He changed several schools before class 10th. And yet he goes on to become one of the biggest writers of the whole world, getting Nobels and, influencing the national anthems of countries, influencing nationalism in India, right? So one of his primary contributions also was the Bengal School of Art, and not primarily him, but Abanindranath Tagore, okay, which was the nephew, I believe, okay. Whereas Debendranath Tagore, the father, he didn't do much in terms of Bengal School of Art, okay. So here your answer is only B, right? What is Khwai? So we discussed yesterday. In fact, if you have ever gone to, say, Mednipur, okay, here is some mapping for you. Mednipur district, West Bengal, okay. Or if you go to, say, Birbhum, so in Bolpur also you find it. You will find these Khwai being found there. What are these Khwais? These sort of, say, minor ravines, Chambal ravines, that, they look like the younger bhai of, the chota bhai of these Chambal ravines, okay. So they'll be small standing up top, red soil geological formations, and they are because of wind and soil erosion, okay. So canyon formation due to erosion, that is Khwai, primarily found in the state of West Bengal, okay. Why did we discuss this? Because, well, Debendranath Tagore found some of this around the whole Shanti Niketan, Vishwa Bharati, Bolpur area, okay. And thus Khwai is important for you to consider. And what was the pseudonym that Rabindranath Tagore used to publish his work? Now, what is the difference between pseudonym and, say, the names that are given to you later? Pseudonym is the name you give to yourself, okay. So Rabindranath Tagore, in his early formative years, when he wanted to go ahead and publish poems, in fact, he had used the pseudonym Bhanu Simha. Now, the Bard of Bengal, Kobi Guru, okay, Guru Dev, these were names that were given by people like you and me to him, as a mark of respect. So pseudonym is the name that he gave to himself, his pen name, if you want to understand it, and his name was Bhanu Simha, right? Finally, we also discussed the Hoysala, the sacred ensemble of Hoysalas in the state of Karnataka. Okay, and so let's look at it. Hoysala architecture has temples dedicated to both Bhagwan Vishnu and Shiva. Now, I had told you yesterday also, if I had introduced the word only here, okay, then this would be an incorrect statement. But because only is not there, so it stands correct. Because what you also understand is that there is also a temple dedicated to Ma Lakshmi, goddess Lakshmi. Okay, so this is correct. And the Pradakshina Patha, so this was, say, your raised platform. Okay, the Sanctum Sanctorium, this was, say, the temple. And you had a path around which you can go ahead and, say, circumnavigate or circumambulate around the god or around the deity. That was known as Pradakshina Patha. Okay, Pradakshina is in fact the whole act of going, taking a chakkar around the god and, going before the god, before the deity. So the Pradakshina Patha is an intrinsic part of Hoysala architecture. Incorrect statements here being none. Right? I had also discussed and asked, so what's the highest station of Darjeeling Himalayan Railways? And I was very happy to see that almost all of the students gave me the correct answer. The highest railway station is Ghum. Okay. In fact, if you go from, say, New Jalpaiguri, okay, thereafter you head to Sukna. All right. Then you go ahead, Kurseong, Sonada, Ghum. Then you have something called as the Batasia Loop, wherein a war memorial is there, by the way, guys. Okay. And then finally you reach your destination, Darjeeling. Okay. This is the whole route that the Darjeeling Himalayan Railway takes. And the highest station that you see here is the station of Ghum. Okay. And so which particular board, the railway board goes ahead and manages it? All of you have answered correctly, more or less. I was specifically pleased with the answer of Ajay Sangden. Okay. He is from Darjeeling. And so he answered correctly, as I expected. So why I'll tell you this? More importantly, now that you know about Darjeeling Himalayan Railways, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Okay. You also have, say, Sundarbans World Heritage Site in West Bengal. And you have, say, the Santiniketan that has been included as a World Heritage Site. My advice to you would be, go ahead and have a preliminary idea about all three of them. Okay. Make sure that you're aware of, say, why each area is being selected. Okay. What is the procedure of selection? We have discussed in detail yesterday. Who is the organization responsible? We have discussed that in detail yesterday. If there is any way I can improve this whole class for you guys, okay, do let me know. Don't forget to leave me a like, because it's a lot of intense work in my morning. My mornings are quite intense when I go ahead and prepare for this. So just leave me a like. It would give me a lot of boost. Because these students, Kalyan, Ulfat, Monica, Shubham, Pooja, Harshit, Ajay, Neeraj, Tanu, Akhil, Vaishnavi, Akansha, Nothing, Koda, Mandeep, Karuna, Honey, your neighbor, Pranjul, Preetam, Rahul, Abhishek, Akshay and Ayush. A lot of new names. I must thank you for your participation. Okay. And if you continue at this, keep at this, say, for the course of the next, say, a month or so, you will see that your ability to solve questions takes like a leapfrog. You will see a leapfrog in that, a lot of development in that. And so to the rest of you who watch this, I can only implore you, please leave me a like. Consider sharing it with your friends who will benefit out of this whole exercise in the morning. And if there is any feedback you have for me, good, bad, neutral, please consider leaving it in the comment box. Okay? Alright guys, I will take your leave now. I will see you tomorrow morning, once again, 6:30 a.m. with another set of topics. If you have any questions, you have my Telegram ID, my Instagram ID and my email ID. Don't hesitate to reach out. Okay? Have a productive day.